They did not come after you because you were weak. They came after you because something about the way you exist in a room reminds them of everything they will never be. Let that land for a second. The arrogant man who mocked you, the jealous group that coordinated against you, the elite circle that quietly added your name to a list you were never supposed to find. None of them were reacting to your failures. They were reacting to your presence. And presence, real presence, the kind that cannot be manufactured or borrowed or bought, is the single most threatening thing one human being can carry into a world that depends on everyone staying small and manageable and afraid. History has proven this pattern without a single exception. Empires did not crumble because of armies outside the walls. They collapsed because of the one person inside the story they could not predict, could not control, and could not afford to ignore. From ancient courts to modern boardrooms, the machinery of power has always reserved its most aggressive response, not for the weakest link, but for the one variable that refuses to behave. If you have been targeted, mocked, blacklisted, or surrounded by people who seem irrationally invested in your failure, congratulations, you just found out which category you are in. Psychology research confirms what every survivor already knows in their bones. Arrogance is not confidence. It is fear wearing an expensive suit. Envy does not spread through groups because the target is failing. It spreads because the target is succeeding in a way the group cannot explain or replicate. And elite systems do not blacklist people who are irrelevant. Blacklists, the real ones, the quiet ones, are reserved exclusively for disruptors, for people whose very existence threatens to make the whole performance look exactly like what it is. And here is the part that honestly makes me laugh. These people, the arrogant man, the jealous circle, the gatekeeping elite, they all came at you with strategy. They had meetings, they had plans, they coordinated. Meanwhile, you were just being yourself. That is not a slight advantage. That is an entirely different game. You are not even playing theirs. Welcome to Oculus of the Wise. This channel exists for the ones who were never supposed to make it this far. If you are new here, subscribe right now. I promise you, this is the conversation you have been looking for. And if you have been here before, you already know. Drop a comment right now. Tell me in one word how you feel when someone underestimates you. One word. I want to see it. Now, let us talk about exactly what happened, why it happened, and why every single thing they did to stop you was always going to guarantee your rise. Instead, number one, you were the variable they could not solve, and that alone broke their system. For generations, these systems have thrived by studying patterns. They calculate behavior. They set traps they are absolutely certain most people will fall into, offer comfort and people settle, threaten loss and people obey, apply enough pressure and people crack. That formula works on almost everyone because almost everyone is operating from fear or ego or the desperate need for approval. Then you came along and none of those switches worked. They offered you comfort in exchange for silence and you walked away. They threatened you with isolation and you grew stronger alone. They pressured you and instead of cracking, you clarified. To them, you are not just a difficult person. You are chaos in human form. You are an equation that cannot be solved. And nothing terrifies a system built on control more than the one variable it cannot predict. What they could not stand, what kept them up at night, is that you were not even trying to outmaneuver them. You were just living in alignment with something they have never had access to, truth. Truth does not follow their formulas. Truth cannot be staged or bribed or rehearsed. And every time you responded from a place of truth, you threw their entire architecture into confusion without lifting a single finger against them. Number two, their attack was a confession written in plain sight. When a man mocks you publicly, when a group forms a coalition against one person, when an elite circle moves to contain someone, the act itself is the loudest admission they will ever make. It says, without words, that they cannot face you individually, that they need numbers just to be in the same conversation as your presence. Think about that. Ordinary people do not require strategy. Ordinary people do not cause sleepless nights and whispered meetings and coordinated campaigns. You only draw that level of organized energy when something about you has genuinely disrupted the sense of control in everyone around you. Every lie they whispered was a confession of their fear. Every scheme they launched was a broadcast of your significance. They thought they were exposing you. They were exposing themselves, and the longer they kept it up, the clearer the confession became. They were never fighting against your weakness. They were fighting against your gravity. Number 3. His confidence was borrowed, and the debt collector was always coming. The arrogant man who laughed at you was not operating from anything real. Real confidence does not need a crowd. Real confidence does not perform. It breathes quietly and remains steady when nobody is watching and when the applause stops entirely. What he had was a loan, borrowed from other people's attention, from flattery, from the temporary admiration of people who were never actually loyal to him. He mocked your struggles because he could not afford to examine his own. Every insult he aimed at you said less about your worth and more about the cracks he was desperately trying to cover. And here is the truth that arrogance never prepares anyone for. When you borrow something and pretend you own it, exposure is not a possibility. It is a schedule. When life demanded proof that he was as solid as he performed, the mask did not just slip, it shattered. In front of the same audience he had been performing for. And now every person who once clapped for him sits with the quiet, uncomfortable knowledge that what they admired was never real. His arrogance was not the overflow of inner security, it was the sound of inner emptiness, pretending to be full. Number 4, they did not plan for your endurance, and that miscalculation was fatal. Jealousy always underestimates endurance. Always. They came at you with confidence because they believed you would react the way they would react if the tables were turned. They assumed you were fueled by the same shallow strength they live by. What they did not know, what they fundamentally could not account for, is that you were already reinforced by something their playbook has no category for. People who operate from envy move on impulse. They do not stop to measure how deep your roots actually go or how much you survived before they ever stepped into the picture. That is why they threw everything at once, expecting immediate collapse. What they encountered instead was someone who had been tested by storms they never even witnessed and had already built the kind of endurance that does not flinch at weather. Every time they said this should have broken them, you stood. Every time they said surely this will silence them, you spoke. Every time they predicted this will destroy them, you emerged with more credibility than you entered with. Their frustration kept growing because they had no category for it. The tools that break most people simply do not work on you, and nothing is more destabilizing to a system of control than the moment it realizes its tools are obsolete. Number 5. Your silence was not weakness. It was the most sophisticated weapon in the room. While they were shouting and scheming and making a spectacle of their obsession, you stayed quiet, observing, letting them move. They read that calm as defeat. They assumed your silence meant you had nothing. What they could not see is that your silence was not indecision, it was intelligence. You did not need to react to every provocation, or defend yourself against every lie, or prove your value to people who were too invested in your failure to ever acknowledge your worth. Your patience was surgical. Every moment they wasted trying to bait a reaction only compounded their exposure. Their noise made them readable. Every lie, every exaggeration, every desperate escalation became a blueprint you did not even have to ask for. They handed you the map of their entire operation by refusing to stop talking. And while they were busy building what they thought was your downfall, they were constructing brick by brick the case against themselves. In the end, the quiet one always has the last word. Not because they shout louder at the finish, but because they let the other person finish building their own testimony first. Number 6. His stage became his gallows, and he built it with his own hands. He wanted visibility. He demanded attention. He performed from a platform he built entirely on spectacle and borrowed admiration. And here is what arrogance never understands about stages: they do not protect, they magnify. Every word spoken on a stage gets amplified. Every crack in the performance gets a front-row audience. The more he pushed, the more the performance had to escalate. Arrogance is unsustainable because it always demands a bigger show the next time, a louder laugh, a harsher insult, a riskier display. Eventually, the performance outpaces the person, and when that happens, the stage does not just fail to protect him, it becomes the instrument of his exposure. The same spotlight he chased became the light that showed everyone exactly what he had been hiding. His flaws, his hollowness, his desperation, all of it amplified by the very visibility he worshipped. The applause he lived for did not fade, it transformed. People are no longer clapping in admiration, they are laughing in disbelief, and that laughter is not harmless. That laughter is a verdict. If what you just heard hit something real in you, I want you to feel something right now. Not just think it, feel it, because this next section is where the story changes direction entirely. Like this video if you are ready for that shift, and subscribe if you are not already here, because what comes next is the part most people never get to hear. Number 7. Their unity was hatred, which means it was always going to consume itself. What held the group together was not loyalty or shared purpose or genuine strategy. It was envy. Every meeting, every whispered plan, every coordinated move was fueled by bitterness, looking for a target. And hatred is the most unstable adhesive that exists. It is corrosive. It is volatile. It demands constant reinforcement, which means they had to keep plotting, keep escalating, keep feeding the obsession just to maintain the illusion of power. Unlike alliances built on something real, theirs only survived as long as you remained under active threat. The moment their attacks stopped producing results, the cracks appeared between them. Their egos turned on each other. Their bitterness, having nowhere left to go, started consuming the infrastructure they had built to aim it at you. They were never building anything, they were only destroying, and a coalition with no creative purpose and no real bond is not a coalition, it is a countdown. Number 8. They couldn't replicate your source, and that realization drove them to escalate. They watched you, they studied your confidence, your calm under pressure, your ability to move through chaos without being reshaped by it, and they tried to copy it. They mimicked your words, your posture, your methods, but imitation only works on the surface. What they could not copy is where it comes from. Your strength, your clarity, your unshakable presence. It does not come from technique or strategy or social positioning. It comes from alignment with something they have never found access to. You can walk the same steps as someone and never arrive at the same place, because the destination depends on what is carrying you, not just where your feet are pointed. That is why every attempt they made to replicate you felt hollow to everyone watching. Authenticity radiates in a way that performance cannot. People sense the difference even when they cannot name it. And the harder they tried to copy your foundation, the more obvious it became that theirs was borrowed. The original and the replica do not look the same under pressure. Pressure is where the difference becomes undeniable. Number 9. Their jealousy turned them into your publicists without a single cent of your money. Every rumor they whispered, every coordinated smear, every attempt to control the narrative around your name acted like a megaphone, projecting you further than you could have reached on your own. They assumed they were crafting your erasure. They were writing your campaign. Their obsession ensured that more eyes landed on you, more conversations included you, more people became curious about someone who commanded that level of frantic, organized energy from that many people at once. Nothing communicates significance like disproportionate opposition. People could not help but ask the only logical question: what makes this person so threatening that all of this is required to bring them down? Their jealousy did not hide you, it highlighted you, and that is the most ironic punishment arrogance and envy have ever designed for themselves. They paid with their own credibility to advertise your worth. Number 10. His popularity was rented, yours was earned, and those are not the same asset. His rise was fast because it was built on noise and spectacle and performance. People cheered because he entertained them, not because he inspired them, and entertainment is the most fickle currency in existence. The moment the show got old, the moment the mask cracked, those same voices pivoted without hesitation. Their loyalty was never real, it was conditional, it was rented, and rented things come with an eviction notice written in the fine print. The crowd that once shouted his name did not slowly drift away. They switched overnight because they were never truly his. Meanwhile, your story is different. The respect you carry did not come from performance, it came from truth. People may not have always clapped for you loudly, but they observed. They saw your endurance. They saw what you absorbed without breaking. Respect built on truth does not expire because it is not dependent on entertainment or maintaining an image. It stays because it is rooted in something that does not change with the season. He had the applause. You have the regard. And when you compare those two things over time, the difference becomes unmistakable. Number 11. Targeting you was the price they paid to expose themselves. Every scheme they set in motion to harm you has become a testimony against them. The lies they crafted meant to tarnish your name now hang over them as documented evidence of their character. Every manipulation, every whispered plan, every calculated move intended to weaken you has become a record that does not disappear. Their weaponized envy has no expiration date. It keeps circling back, surfacing at the wrong moments, reminding everyone who has been paying attention exactly what kind of people they are and exactly what they were willing to do. What they designed as your downfall became the blueprint of their exposure. Their punishment was not delivered from the outside. It was embedded in the tools they built. Because you cannot aim that kind of energy at someone rooted in truth without that energy eventually turning around and following the trail back to its source. Number 12. They have to watch you outlive every narrative they built about you. That is their real sentence. The cruelest part of their failure is not that they did not succeed in stopping you. It is that they have to witness your rise knowing they tried. Every single plot, every lie, every coordinated scheme was designed to keep you contained, small, and defeated. Instead, it became fuel, and now they are trapped as spectators to their own impotence. Their envy does not resolve with your vindication. It intensifies as they watch every attack they launched become another chapter in your growth. They replay the failures in silence, each memory of a carefully planned move, now repackaged in their own minds as proof that their time and malice and coordination accomplished exactly nothing. They tried to write the ending of your story. They ended up writing the middle, and the middle, it turns out, was where you were getting stronger. Number 13. Your legacy does not need their stage, their table, or their permission. They can blacklist you from their rooms. They can erase your name from their newsletters. They can deny you access to the platforms where influence is traditionally measured and distributed. None of that touches the core of what you carry. Your impact is not a performance they have the power to cancel. It is a force that moves independently of their permission, through walls, past hierarchies, beyond curated networks. Because it was never designed to be confined to the spaces they control. Destiny does not check the guest list. Influence does not require their seal to be real. Your legacy grows in places they cannot monitor, in the lives you shift without announcing it, in the quiet courage you model for people who are watching from distances you will never measure. They can control the stage. They cannot control what you leave in the room after you walk through it. Number 14. You are not just surviving their opposition, you are its proof of concept. Here is the final truth that brings every piece of this together. The arrogant man who mocked you, the jealous group that coordinated against you, the elite circle that blacklisted you, they are not three separate problems. They are three chapters of the same story, and the story is not about them. It never was. The story is about what happens when someone who is genuinely aligned with truth, genuinely rooted in something real, genuinely immune to the standard mechanisms of control, walks into a world that has been built entirely around the assumption that everyone has a price. You proved that assumption wrong, and the proof is not in a speech you gave or a victory you announced. The proof is in the simple, unrelenting, undeniable fact that you are still here. In the end, what we have witnessed across every layer of this story is not complicated. The borrowed collapse, the rented applause expires. The blacklist turns into a biography. The stage becomes a gallows. The attack becomes a confession. The weapon becomes a mirror. Every force aimed at stopping you ended up doing the opposite. Not because you are lucky, not because you are flawless, but because you are aligned with something their systems were never designed to contain. They were temporary. You are permanent. They performed. You endured. They rented their power. You built yours. They burned bright and fast. You burned steady and long. Their words were fireworks. Yours were foundations. And foundations are the only thing that survives every kind of storm. To every chosen one who made it to this moment, do not underestimate what it means that you are still here. Do not confuse the length of the storm with the weakness of your foundation. The same forces that were sent to break you were always going to end up as the evidence that defines you. Every person who underestimated you is now part of your testimony. Every coordinated attack is now a chapter in your vindication. Every closed door is now a timestamp, proving you were already building something they could not see. Own that, all of it. If this reached something in you today, do not let it stay silent. Subscribe to Oculus of the Wise. This is your home. Like this video, so it finds the chosen one who needs it right now and does not yet know this community exists. Comment below and tell me, what is the one thing someone used against you that ended up becoming your greatest advantage? Your answer is not just for you. It is for every person in this community who is in the middle of that battle right now and needs to read your story. And share this with someone who is still in the storm, who does not yet know they are going to come out of it, standing in a way nobody around them could have predicted. Your presence here is not an accident. Your survival is not a coincidence. And the fact that you watched until this moment, that tells me everything I need to know about who you are. God bless you, and welcome home.